when you start thinking of everything in terms of manifestation, you realize that your belief system is your operating system, which is controlling what you're creating. That's why you're creating similar things in your life day after day after day. So you have this sort of linear experience. So everything is a manifestation, and it's how intentional are your manifestations.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another epic episode of High Vibin' It. Today we have a reoccurring guest who we love so much, Mr. David Strickel. He's awesome. He channels what we call the stream, a stream of consciousness that gives us really great life advice, I would say, based on the last conversation. And he's really just all about manifesting your best life in the easiest way possible, the most efficient way, working with nature, working with the universe. And we wanted to have him back on the podcast because our first podcast episode with him was so great, which you should definitely tune into. It was episode 90. And we're just here to hash it out some more and have a fun conversation. And hopefully everyone listening can also enjoy themselves and learn something that benefits their life. So, David, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me back.
Of course.
I can feel the inspiration already starting to tingle. This episode's going to be great. So for those that haven't heard our first episode with you, David, can you just give like as much as you want? Let's just be real. Just give as much as you want of what you do.
Oh, you have to be careful with me. I could talk for 45 minutes.
Same. Absolutely same.
But I am what a lot of people would call a channel. I believe everybody channels in their own way. First of all, I'll make that very, very clear that we're all one with source and that we have that in us. I have had a very acute relationship with my source being, if you want to call it that, all my life. And I was really left to my own devices sort of to raise myself as a child. And that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me, because I never learned to tune out that inner source knowing that children have. And I carried that into my teen years, into adulthood. I certainly listened to it sometimes, and I allowed my ego to overshadow it, as we all do, and ignored it at other times. And that created this interesting path of twists and turns and problems to be solved and spin outs in life and triumphs and manifestations of just about anything and everything that most people want. And at the end of all of that, I arrived at a space where I no longer wanted to keep that aspect of me hidden. So, having been inspired by Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham, she was the one that, for me, that made it seem not so weird to channel, because I was told that I was a channel and that I had this gift of being able to share this by a psychic before I even knew what it was. Mm-hmm. And she tried to turn me on to Abraham Hicks, and I was very reluctant. I was very freaked out by all of that. I thought it was weird. I didn't want to be a weird person. So I took about 10 years to come around to really being comfortable with it, really discovering Esther's teachings, really getting deep into it, and then realizing that I had my own version of that, and then ultimately having to step away from that and shut all of that down so that I could allow the stream to be the stream and not just a knockoff of something else. And that has gone very, very well. I've been doing that publicly since 2017, starting with the Stream of David podcast. It's still going today. And I wrote a book that was published in 2018 called The Stream: Eternal Wisdom for a Better Life. I've written another book that's in the publication process that will probably come out next year, called the TYA Practice. And the thing about the TYA Practice is all of this channeling that we all do is fantastic. It's all of these, all this clarity and this sort of dance with, is this my ego? Is this something I learn from somebody else, and I have this sort of egocentric or ego-centered judgment about it or opinion of it because of something that I learned? Or is this pure source? Well, I've come to understand that pure source is appreciation of all that is, and it is the source of all creation. And anything other than that usually has some ego peppered in. I'm starting to call that the matrix these days, that collective consciousness of humanity, where we have these belief systems that we all run on. And I have found that when I strip away the matrix belief systems and move fully into a source-aligned belief system, life gets really, really good. Not perfect from a 3D perspective, but joyous and clear, and you're able to really savor the highs and the lows in your vibrational journey, because we're not here to solve the vibrational journey. We're not here to just be up all the time, happy all the time. Some people call that bypassing. I've even heard the term toxic spirituality lately, which is kind of
Yeah.
interesting. But it's not that. It's appreciation of the low as much as you appreciate the high. And my aim is to be more aligned with that source version of me. And in doing so, I came to understand that all of these sort of heady channeled ideas are great, but how do you actually apply them in your 3D life? Because as much as we might like to say, well, I'm not in 3D anymore, I'm a spiritual being and I'm
in the
awake.
12D. That's where I hang.
Yeah. To me, that's all kind of like, okay, return to ego. That's exactly where you are when you're thinking that. But I understand that. I understand clarity and how hypnotic clarity is, and how you start to feel like, wow, I get it, and most people don't. But as soon as you start thinking you're superior, then you're really not in that space.
Yeah.
So I created a practice for myself to really practice what the stream was delivering to me. And I practiced it over a 10-year period. It completely transformed my life. And in 2017, when I started the podcast, I began sharing it. And then in 2018, not very long after that, I started teaching it to other people, and it became the TYA practice. And TYA, now we have people all over the world practicing it. It's not a religion. There's no rules. There's no judgment. There's no worship. It is a mindset practice that gives you the tools to allow more of your source being, and a systematic detuning of your ego and the collective ego that we refer to as the matrix.
Yummy stuff. I like it. I want to slow down and kind of rewind a little bit to the part where you mentioned life gets really good, but not perfect from the 3D sense, which I think is so important for us to just touch on for a second, because I've noticed in the self-help industry, the spirituality realm, that it's almost like a lot of teachers are unknowingly selling people the same lie that like religion used to sell people, like, oh, if you are free of all sin and if you do your best in this life and you repent and blah blah blah, you're going to go to heaven. But now the new message from spirituality is you can create heaven on earth if you keep your mind clear enough, if you keep your body clean enough, if you get your vibe high enough, then nothing bad will ever happen to you. You'll live heaven on earth, everything will be perfect, the end. And people just fall into this misconception of like the perfect trap. Like, oh, if my vibration is clean enough, then I'm not going to be susceptible to, like life that we signed up for and agreed to, which is interesting. So I'm glad that you made that little caveat. That's very important.
Yeah.
Because
I
it
call
doesn't
that
have
the
to be
Instagram
perfect.
version of life.
Right.
That Instagram version of everything's perfect. I'm crushing it. I'm on my private jet, and I've got the hottest body, and I'm with the hottest partner, and I'm reversing aging, and money's flowing in, and that all that stuff looks great. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of those things necessarily, but that 3D version of life where everything's perfect all the time, and you're operating in perfect health, perfect financial status, perfect everything. And I have yet to meet anyone who's really there. And the interesting thing for me is when I first got into this, I got out, I left the corporate world behind right after I started the podcast, with no plan, and just trusted the universe. And for almost 5 years later, that has worked out very well. But in that journey, I started meeting a lot of guru type people. Oh, if you're going to do, you need to meet this person and that person, and they're doing this. And I experimented with all that stuff. I got into the best physical shape of my life. We were just talking about the transformation of my beard to gray. I was coloring my beard. And again, nothing wrong with any of these things, but I wanted to project that look of someone who is just crushing it in every way, And I came to realize that all of that stuff is still just another shell of ego, that any experience and every experience while we're on earth has value for our expansion.
Yeah.
All of it. And source is not judging any of it. There's no source being saying, oh, you've got to be, eat this diet, and you've got to be lean, and you've got to respect your temple. I commune with source. I know that I do when I channel, and source is not judging the person that is living on fast food.
Yeah.
They may be creating their own experience in that, for sure. We all know what that could look like, but as far as your health goes, but source is not judging that.
It's like he
So we're here
knows I
to.
had McDonald's yesterday. Like you knew.
Sometimes it does feed the soul, right?
It really does.
There's
But I've been
different types of
working out
nourishment, like we
for
like to say, different levels of nourishment out there.
I've been working out for 7 days straight.
Lindsay, I am so shocked, shooketh, and proud of you all
Anyone who has
simultaneously.
listened to more than 2 episodes of this podcast will be like, what did she just say? Yes, I have. And I'm going to do it again today. So I'm going to eat a damn Whopper if I want to.
You
or
guys, this
Big
is
Mac.
a miracle. This is legit, straight up a miracle for Lindsay, because so many times I've heard her say the words, I hate working out, I don't like
Yeah.
moving my body, blah, 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 blah. And that was her story. But now she has a new story this week. So
You know what?
yes.
Yeah. It's
I am
great.
here
It's
for
the
it.
longest streak I've had probably in years. And you know what? Why not? And I want to really talk about for a second what you said about cherishing in so many words, cherishing all the moments. Like we say this all the time on the podcast. We human beings did not come here to only feel good. Our souls did not incarnate here to only feel good. We came here to feel it all. And so I think it's very profound and important that you talk about that. And can you give us a little a glimpse from your perspective on how you are able to, like, what does it look like for you to navigate and to cherish those low moments and to really appreciate them for what they are versus getting lost in the sadness or the depression or the anxiety?
I think remembering that we are all beings of source, and source is not judging anything, and that all of our suffering is rooted in the judgment of what we're experiencing.
Mhm.
Oh,
That
that's
judgment
so
of,
good.
right? That this should not be. Anytime you're suffering, you can always think, gosh, whatever it is, it's that this should not be.
Yeah.
But it is what you're experiencing. And we're not here eternally. This is always temporary. Our bank accounts are temporary, our bodies are temporary, our relationships are temporary, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
We like to think of eternity. I'm going to be together with this twin flame forever, but we don't know that. And while I do think that we have, people that we vibe with and they sort of vibe in and out of experiences and things like that with us, we're independent strands of consciousness that are of source. So yes, we're all a collective, but obviously the value is in the independent journey as a being. And here we are in physical on this independent journey. And I look back throughout my lifetime, I'm 54 now, and I have had plenty of quote unquote suffering experiences. But the thing that carried me through them was returning to that trust and returning to source. Like I said, I never learned to ignore it, which ended up being a great gift. Most of us learn to ignore it, but you can unlearn that. You can detune any belief system that you've created for yourself, and you create all of it. You can detune and shift your belief system with time into something where you're able to meet your obstacles in appreciation, if not joy, and really zoom out to that super high perspective of source that's really zooming in and seeing things from that eternal perspective, that this pet that I love so much that I know is only going to be with me for 15 years. We've had that experience, most of us, and their life is going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Well, at the end, certainly there may be sadness. There may be a sense of loss of that companionship and that being and that personality that you were used to, or that the whatever you call a personality for an animal, and but that can be actually met in appreciation of the experience that was had for that period of time. And you could actually experience it with no sense of loss or sadness if you choose to.
Yeah.
Whatever your experience is your experience, and it's fine. But when we start realizing that suffering is all a choice and a matter of judgment, and that judgment of I shouldn't be experiencing this. But if you have a pet and you know that they're going to have a lifespan that's going to have a beginning, middle, and an end, and maybe it gets cut short, and we've had that happen too, then the only thing that's really causing the suffering is the judgment of this should not be. And if you take that out of it, then you can just appreciate the time that you did have or the experience that you had, whether it was a job or a fortune or the being completely dialed into being in the best shape of your life, whatever it was an experience.
Yeah. And it's that saying of what is it? Don't be sad that it's gone, be happy that it happened. It's that redirecting the focus to like look at this amazing experience that you got to have. that you wouldn't even know about, if it hadn't happened. So I also really quickly want to just jump back a little bit to when you said you can rewire your mind, essentially. I forget the word you used. What'd you use? Desensitize.
I refer to everything as an operating. It sounds a little clinical or a little
Yeah.
techie, but we run on an operating system, just like a
Yes.
computer does.
Yes.
And we all default to some operating system. It's our belief system, and you created it from conception, and certainly from birth. It was your own unique creation. That's why we're not an exact reflection of our parents. We're unique beings born into an environment that we're absorbing from all sorts of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And the stream has even said that the reason that we find infants so appealing is that is attraction. Once again, that's that infant drawing in multiple beings to learn from, to learn how I'm going to navigate this human journey, because I don't want everything to be a singular experience that's a replication of what my parents tried to deliver. That never works. That never works, because we're independent beings. So your belief system is your own creation. And the lovely thing is that we do have the power to shift our belief system. It takes a little work and a little time, but we have the power to change the belief system. When you change your belief system, your life changes.
Yeah. And just fun fact, scientifically, babies only have the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling and the fight or flight response. That's all. So everything else is learned. And you're absolutely right. Everything that has been learned can be unlearned. And really, you, listener, you on the podcast, you've been doing it your whole life anyway. Like, we always do this. We always unconsciously or subconsciously discard certain things and obtain other things. We're always, or rather, our subconscious is always picking and choosing what it's going to accept and what it isn't. So you're already doing it. I think it's very important to notice that this is something you already know how to do, and you're just honing the skill, I guess, so to speak, and you're becoming more aware and observing that this is an option for you to, well, maybe I don't want to believe that anymore. What else could I believe instead? And begin that process.
Good point.
Very cool.
Very good point. And you brought up something good too about the fear mechanism. The stream has said the fear mechanism exists just to be a reaction to keep you out of harm's way, like you were saying, fight or flight. But it's been exploited.
Yeah.
What we refer to as the matrix has learned to exploit our fear mechanism, and now it's woven into almost every aspect of life. Currency has a fear mechanism. You're not going to have enough. It's going to run out. Someone's going to take it from you. Your health, your relationships, those are the big three for us.
And if you
they
don't
all have
believe
so much
him,
fear.
turn on the news at any point. If you don't believe that they've used fear as a tool, turn on the news and you'll believe it in 2 seconds.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's just
Our
unbelievable.
advertisement, if you don't have this, you're going to suffer in some way if you don't buy our thing. Yeah.
Yikes. It's true.
Sorry, I was just muted because the AC is kind of loud in here. But I'm laughing in my head as we have this conversation, because I was literally just writing about this in a book that I'm working on, how one of the deadliest, this is a dramatic word, but one of the deadliest or like worst stuck points, or one of the ultimate lies that we get stuck in that keeps us stuck, is it shouldn't be this way, right?
Yeah.
And every time you fight reality, you're just not going to win. You're not going to win at fighting reality. It's very exhausting. It's very tiring, and it just drains your own energy. So I love that you're in agreement with me on it, that judgment hasn't really proven to be so beneficial. Discernment has benefit. Judgment, not so much, right? It just causes us to suffer. So I think that's a really important distinction and thing to point out to people, is it's not always the experience. It's usually the judgment of the experience that is causing the suffer.
I just heard listeners say this as you were saying that. And I think it's important. Okay, but what about manifesting? Because isn't that like fighting reality? So I know what I would say. What would you guys say about the difference between wishing your reality was different and fighting what is versus manifesting? Go. I'm excited.
I'll let David go first. I'll let David go first.
Go, David.
I would say we are absolutely creating reality with our conscious mind all the time. We're creating every next moment. Everything is a manifestation. Everything is. So when you start thinking of everything in terms of manifestation, you realize that your belief system is your operating system, which is controlling what you're creating. That's why you're creating similar things in your life day after day after day. So you have this sort of linear experience. So everything is a manifestation, and it's how intentional are your manifestations. And I've understood law of attraction my whole life. I used to think it was something that I invented. I think I shared that probably when I was on here before. I think that's just kind of silly. I like to share that. But when I was a teenager, I thought it was my own creation at some point
Now
because no one
that's an
else seemed to get it.
entrepreneur, guys. That is an entrepreneur mindset.
Yeah, when I was 14, I explained to my older brother, Doug, that, hey, we're creating all of this. We can, I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know
Yeah.
the words law of attraction, but I understood it. And then I moved into my teen years consciously creating my reality to be more to my liking. And we are always doing that. The issue is that we're operating in this polarized environment where our emotions are impacted by polarity. So we're moving through this sort of up and down vibrational flow. We're all very aware of that. And really, astrology and things like that are all rooted in that. The whole universe operates in polarity, and polarity expands the universe because of the high low that we experience and the new creation that it inspires. So we go down into low vibration, we manifest some obstacles in our lives, and sometimes we get stuck on those obstacles because we get stuck in the this should not be. But other times we think, gosh, I want out of this. I'm going to figure out a way to move out of this obstacle in my life. Polarity is going to pull you back up into high vibration at some point. And when you're in that higher vibrational state, you're allowing of source, which is really the source of all creation. And in that space, you're solving, you're creating, you're evolving. So going down into low vibration, creating problems, and then solving those problems is creation. That is expansion. And just, I always say, think about everything that we have that is human created, not just the natural creation, quote unquote, but the human creation things are all a response to a perceived need or deficiency. All of it. So we have this, a desire to jump on and be able to communicate via video and broadcast it to the world. Well, that didn't exist just a few years ago. And here we are using that technology. Well, what created that? That perceived ability to do something new and expand into something new, and the belief that it could be done. And then thus the universe steps in and allows it to be. So that manifestation piece is automatic. It's just, are you stuck in manifesting the same things over and over and over again? Are you allowing yourselves to trust more and manifest new things and new experiences and move through these new temporary things for the experience of them?
Yeah, that's it. That's important. I know, Kelsey, you're chomping at the bit here, but wanting something and wanting to obtain it for the experience of obtaining it feels different, hits different than saying, I want this because it will get me this. I want this because that is what I'm obtaining by having this, rather than just going in and being like, what would it be like to
Yeah.
experience
Or you
it?
think it's going to bring you some level of joy
Totally.
that's going to make up for a lack of source connection or belief or love for yourself and all of
Yeah.
that stuff.
That only
I've
that
done that.
one thing can do. Yeah.
We've all
Yeah,
been there.
I spent my 30s manifesting materially because I wasn't quite there, and I was ignoring that part of the stream during my life, which turned out again to be beneficial. Not until my 40s when I had all the material stuff and realized, okay, there's still a whole lot missing here.
Yeah. Oof. I missed you, David. Go ahead, Kelsey.
Well, repeat to me again the question. We're talking about, because I was like so into what David was saying.
I
was getting,
know.
like lost in the vibes. So remind me again the
The-
question. It was the difference between fighting reality and manifesting.
Yes, because the piece that we were talking about is fighting what is, or fighting reality, and then how it, what is the difference, the contrast between that and actually creating for the future.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes the manifestation process can start with the not
Yeah.
preferring the reality. So I always say that the contrast, the unwanted, is step 0 in the manifestation process, right? That's what gives you the clarity. That's what gives you the new idea. That's what gives you the desire for the opposite or something more or something better. So it's not wrong to have a moment of, I don't like this for my life. This is not for me. I don't accept this. Like, there can be a lot of empowerment in the moment where you decide that you are choosing another direction, right? But if you stay in that fighting energy,
Yeah.
I haven't found it to be conducive to effortless manifestation. I
gotta
found
get
it to be
past step 1.
conducive to more blockages, more challenges, and more resistance, right? When you're in a state of resistance, you're just like perpetuating that cycle. So for me personally, if I'm in a space of fighting my reality, that's not necessarily the time where I'm going to go pick up my journal and start scripting. That's going to be the moment where I'm going to like be with my experience and see if I can navigate my way into a less resistant space. Like, why am I making this wrong? Why can't it be like this right now? What if it was okay that I am where I am? And then as I like, this is my personal practice, as I release the resistance to what is, then you can create from a space of play. Then you can create from a space of, like David said, just wanting to experience something new or different or better. It doesn't have to be because I hate this or I don't accept this or I don't want it anymore. Or it could be because of that too. I think
Yeah.
there's value in it, but I think people can get stuck there and then they're like, why aren't my manifestations coming? And I'm like, girl, you just got to keep moving through that.
Yeah, you'll never know what you want if you don't know what you don't want. But I think that getting past step one is the work, is getting past the acknowledgement and not getting stuck in the, oh, this shouldn't be like this. Why is this like this? It's taken forever. Is it even going to happen? Is it possible for me? Like, that's all. You're right. It just creates more and more resistance and more obstacles. So moving through that, accepting that I am here right now. This is what is, and I want more. And so, starting to go in that direction. Just wanted to distinguish that because I know
It's a
there's
good
going to be
question.
people listening that are like, but what?
Well, it's good clarity because again, because of vibrational flow, we're not going to stay in that static space of alignment all the time.
Yeah.
If the more we focus on the things that we want, the more we're going to focus on them through various states of vibrational flow. That's why you start out up here, you listen to some Abraham or some stream or some motivational thing. Yes, I can do
Yeah.
this. This thing is mine. I feel it. And you're so in alignment with it. And then a little time passes, and it's a very good thing that the universe doesn't deliver everything instantaneously, because think of what the world would be if we were instant manifestors of every single thing that we thought about. It would be insane. There
Yeah.
is a lag time there, and it's sort of like the universe is saying, are you really sure? Especially with the big stuff. I have found that little things, I can manifest the little things so easily, so quickly, but sometimes the larger things take longer just because we make them so big.
Yeah.
But that's actually part of what I call the universal process of creation. The big stuff is meant to take a little longer. It allows you to flesh out what I call a more perfect version of it. So if you're creating something that's big, like a whole new business or a relationship, you're going to move through this vibrational flow journey in your creation of it, which is going to allow you to have that high vibration, yes, I can. And then the next day you wake up and that's the first thing that comes in your mind. You're going to start a new business. What?
Yeah.
How are you going to pay for that? Who's going to
Classic.
pay your bills while it gets off the
What
ground?
if it
Who's going to do
doesn't
this? And
work?
what about that? You're in a different vibe. You've woken up in a different state of vibrational flow, and now all of a sudden you're unraveling all of it. But the good thing is that unraveling can allow you to sort of be observant of the flaws or deficiencies in something. If you think about how everyone has probably read some things about how the company Apple was created, how it spun out and almost went out of business, multiple times, and now they're just massive. Well, that's the process of creation. The yes, I can, high vibration. We're going to create something new and amazing and expand humanity in the process. And then the vibe is going to drop a little bit. Some things are going to unravel, and we're going to see what is really gold in here and what really needs more work. And then we're going to come back and do it again and again and again and again. If Apple had just from day one tried to create the iPhone without all of that history, it wouldn't have been the success that it has been.
Yeah.
The process of creation takes time, and that's true for everything, especially the big stuff.
I have to say, I really hope people are watching this on Patreon right now because the hand motion that you created did something to my soul. So what you did when you said the process of creation, the big things, you went like this, right? Like towards it.
Up and
still-
down, yes.
Still going
Roller
toward,
coaster, yes.
but we're going, it's like a hilly roller coaster. And so many people, even in the manifesting world, think that it starts here. And if you believe, and if you're so positive, and if you feel it, it's just going to shoot right up. It's just going to go in the direction that you want and you'll be unstoppable. I just think it's so important to let it be okay. No, let it be normal that it's going to move. Like you're going to have high days where you can take on the world. You're going to have days where you can't do nothing or you feel like nothing's possible. And that is absolutely just as important as the high days. I think that that was amazing. It really, like, I needed to hear that. I needed to be reminded of that. I guarantee there are listeners that needed to be reminded of that. It's not, they say success isn't a straight line. I'm also gonna say manifesting, definitely not a straight line either.
No, not at all. It was never that's not the process of creation. It was
Never.
never intended to be that. The storms
No.
come through and create some destruction, and then the earth bounces back better than ever. Think about it. We're
Yeah.
that way. Think of how boring someone is. And I know a few people that have had very easy lives. They were born into what you might call privilege. They've always had
Everybody has someone in their mind right now, I
right
guarantee it.
money and doting parents and good looks, and their life has just been this smooth thing, at least from what you can see.
Right.
And there's not a whole lot of depth there. There's not a whole lot of what we would necessarily call character. Yes, I'm being a little judgmental of their experience, but it's their experience. There's nothing wrong with them having that experience. But for me, my preference now is my spun out, messy roller coaster ride of life. I am a good 2/3 probably through with the experience at this point. And now I look back and think, gosh, that time in my 30s where I was so spun out in health, but money was flowing. And then there was this time where money stopped flowing, but the health was so dialed in. And there was this time that the relationships were falling apart. And there was another time that all of those things have enriched my being. And if I take away that judgment of this should not be, or that should not have been, I can appreciate all of it. It is all magnificent.
The image that comes to mind when I went to the Grand Canyon with my kids over a few months ago, there were acres of beautiful reserved forest just burned to ash. And I didn't know this, but they actually will intentionally burn parts of the forest down because what grows in its place is lush and green and healthy and new.
Mhm.
I had no idea. I was like, wait, you actually burn beautiful forest to make it grow back? And it's true. It is true. And I think that image popped in my head so vividly because we are the same. We are nature. We're nature. We're the same.
Absolutely.
And
We
I'm
are
not
of the earth
saying,
environment just like everything else.
yeah, and I'm not saying your whole life has to burn down, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. And what comes in its wake is just beautiful. And if I look back on my experiences in my life, that has been true every single time. When I thought, oh, I don't know if I can come back from this one. This is a doozy. Every single time it's been so much better than I could have imagined. And I think that image in my head is just, it's there for a reason. It's there because, like, sometimes things need to fall away. Sometimes things need to feel hard in order for you to bounce back even better, as you said.
And this time aspect is very overlooked in the
Yeah.
manifesting community, right? Everyone wants everything now. If I was such a good creator, why can't I just quantum leap into my favorite timeline? What the F is going on, right? Like, people are so upset that things take time. But I love how you explained so eloquently that the time is helpful. Like, have you ever heard that compound interest is the seventh wonder of the world? Hello, time can help us get to where we want to go when we allow it to take place. But when we're
Wait. Say that
resisting,
again. Let that drop again.
which part?
What's the wonder of the world?
Oh, there's just like this running joke in the investing community that compound interest is the
Oh.
seventh wonder of the world because you allow time to do the work for you. And I wish that we would have a better relationship with time when it comes to manifesting in the law of attraction instead of just wanting it now, because like David said, there's a purpose for the time. And one of my personal theories for why good things can take time to manifest is because you don't just want that experience so you can have that thing or that goal or that achievement. You are wanting to become the next best version of yourself. And the most gentle way to transform is over time, right? You don't just snap your fingers and you're a new person. That would be a very harsh way to change and develop and grow. So it's almost like we use our manifestations as carrot on a stick of like, oh, this is my desire. But really what you're saying is, this is who I want to become. And to allow yourself time in that process is so healing and so expansive because then it can be on your side instead of falling into the judgment trap. Oh, why is it taking so long? It shouldn't take this long. I suck at manifesting.
Yeah.
It's not coming fast enough, blah, blah, blah. So I think this time piece is really overlooked and not normalized enough of like, time is good. It's good and okay for things to take time. And we make the bigger things take more time on purpose because sometimes we wouldn't be ready. if you want to meet the love of your life tomorrow, but all your past relationships have been epic fails, like it's potentially because maybe you don't have enough relationship skills. Maybe you haven't healed from something in your childhood. Maybe this, maybe that. Like, don't you want to be the best version of yourself for when you do meet your soulmate so that it can be sustainable? Don't you want to have the best relationship with money so that when you have a bunch of money, you don't put it all away and do something stupid with it? Like, don't you want to be ready? And readiness takes time. It takes time to prepare and to become who you want to become. So that's like one of my personal theories as to why good things
That's
can take time to manifest. And I think
there's
the time piece here is like so important to talk about. Hey there. We hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but if you want to listen to the whole thing, we're going to invite you over to our podcast. Either search for High Vibing It on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, or even better, if you want to watch the extended video version of this episode that's even longer than the actual podcast itself, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/highvibe. Lindsay, tell them what's awesome about the Patreon.
Patreon is where we have all of our extended episodes. As Kelsey said, we have it on video, so you can actually see the things that we're talking about. Sometimes we have visual aids, and it's nice to know what we're talking about. We also have hangouts that we do sometimes that are exclusive to Patreon people. And you can get started with all of this and bonus content and everything that we have only for the Patreon people for as little as $3. I think it's $3.33 a month. And that's it. And you guys can get all the benefits and all access to everything that we put in there. Really
Yeah.
cool.
It's really cool, really fun, super easy to join. And you guys don't even have to do that to finish this episode. If you're like, screw it, I don't want to pay any money, I just want to hear the rest of this episode, go to our podcast, High Vibing It, search for it wherever you listen. It's totally free. Either way, enjoy the rest of the show wherever you choose to enjoy it. And we will see you guys next week because we do a new one every week. Adios.
Bye.